Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is John Whipple with the Alaska Division of Agriculture for another Facebook Live today. And I am in Palmer at the Rebarchek farm, which is a historical farm here in Palmer that dates back to the colony days, one of the original 40-acre farms here in Palmer. And for the last few years, there's been a restoration project here. And there's really a lot of exciting stuff going on here because not only is the original farm with some of its original buildings being restored, but there's also a lot of other agricultural and community tie-ins being worked into this project, which are really, really exciting. So with me today, I have Lamar here, who's been in on the project pretty much since the beginning for the last 4 years. Got stood up in 2018, as well as Kevin Fox, who's also been in on this from the beginning, and who's the administrator of our Alaska chapter of the FFA. So thanks, guys, for being here with me today.
Thank you.
And perfect day to be out. We couldn't ask for better. Yeah. And I hope you guys can see a little bit of our backdrop here. We have one of the barns that's being restored. You can see the greenhouse here, Pioneer Peak in the background. This is nestled on the outer edge of the Alaska State Fairgrounds property, and the property is owned by the State Fair. Am I saying that? Is that accurate? Yeah. And so they're working hand in hand with several other entities on this project. I should stop talking because Lamar, you know all about this. So yeah, tell us a little bit about this project. How'd you get involved, and what is the Rebarchek farm?
Okay. Well, the Alaska State Fair Board back in 2017, early 2018, the board, and particularly Carol Kingsley, had a vision to help promote and support agricultural. I mean, that's the basis, the foundation for the Alaska State Fair, our entire Palmer community. And so the property had the first colony farmhouse on the property. This was just kind of a hayfield that had been used for decades for that. But the idea was to preserve the history of agriculture in Alaska, and particularly here in the valley and the Palmer area, and then how can we support agriculture in the future. So then they hired Bill Allen as the project manager, and who then formed a community vision group, so to speak, advisory group, that then met, and we had people from throughout the valley who just started brainstorming what could be done with this original colony property that's now about 15 acres or so. And so then that's where then it was evolved, and we're still following that strategic plan, and that is to preserve the history of agricultural here in the valley with the historical buildings that are here, restoring the farmhouse so that it's representative of a typical colony farmhouse. But then also then we have about 10, 12 acres that we have provided the infrastructure so that people who want to learn agricultural, do experimentation or different varieties, and they don't have land, or they need some help in some mentoring, that they can grow. We have the infrastructure here, there's water. And then we wanted to support agriculture in the future, and that is youth, to keep the youth interested, to pique their interest in agricultural. And so we wanted to build the infrastructure and have the programs to support like 4-H, FFA, youth tribal programs, youth groups, and veterans, seniors who want to be involved with agricultural and learn. And agricultural includes animal husbandry, particularly for the 4-H FFA. So everything we've been doing out here the last 4 years has been basically to build that infrastructure, preserve the history buildings, but to make them functional so that we can support both agriculture today, but then support the youth programs. And that's where Kevin is the state director for FFA from the very start. Then we wanted to be sure that what we were doing and that our vision encompass to help training and support future agricultural for the state. I'll let you take it from there for the youth area.
Yeah, so I guess I could come at it from the youth side, like Lamar was saying. So, you know, I guess looking at the state of Alaska, when we're importing 95% of our food to the tune of what, $2 billion they're saying now, you know, we need to start producing some of our own food. And we need to teach kids about the opportunities that agriculture has to offer. So, you know, and the possibility of careers in that field. And I see a lot of opportunity for kids. This facility is fantastic in that avenue because it FFA students and myself and some fair employees helped build that greenhouse, and so kids will have an opportunity to use a greenhouse to grow bedding plants or anything that they would like. You know, there were some hanging baskets in there. Students from Palmer FFA put hanging baskets in there this year, and so they're looking at possible careers in that industry. There's an opportunity for them to put in garden space and experiment with different crops and learn how to grow them. There's an opportunity for them to grow livestock if they want. With this barn being moved in, it's just it's going to be a fantastic facility for students that might not have that opportunity, but we want to be able to expose them to it, because if they don't grow up in that industry of agriculture, maybe working for their parents on a farm or ranch, or maybe a relative or a neighbor, then they never see those opportunities. So if we can expose it to them at a young age, it's going to be a neat way to go. So
right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
I would add that Ann Kallenstraat she is the 4-H director for the Mat-Su Valley Copper River, division. She's very involved.
Okay.
And the livestock committee are all involved looking in terms of we have a whole designated area for youth development with some animal shelters. The greenhouse is designated for youth use. And so how we can continue to build and grow the programs through those programs, we're not duplicating.
Right.
We're providing the infrastructure and the support that they need to grow their programs, to grow other programs like the tribal folks.
Yeah, taking advantage of existing organizations. Yeah.
You know, the neat thing, I guess, is all the community involvement that's been with this project, not just youth, but adults, and looking at the historic aspects of the facility and trying to incorporate all that, so everybody's benefiting from it. There's been a whole bunch of community members that have stepped up and helped, have a vision, I guess you could say, for what this is going to look like.
It's very integrated. It goes much beyond just restoration, which is cool. That's one of the things that struck me about, as I learned about this project, there were really two things that stood out to me. One is your overarching mission statement of past, present, future. I thought that was really cool, in representing the past and remembering our history here in Palmer by restoring the original farmhouse, which we're going to go tour in a minute, I promise, and original barns and outbuildings. I think that's super cool. But then the present aspect, in that we have several 1-acre lots that you mentioned that are available for people who don't have already large farms, that they can lease those and to do either small scale agriculture or experimental agriculture, right? A big focus there to help expand what we can do up here in Alaska for agriculture, and then finally investing in the future of it, right? Where you come in, Kevin, and bringing in kids and giving kids a space to do it, which brings me to the second part that really stood out to me, is that this seems like a project that is making farming accessible to people who maybe don't already have a farm, who didn't grow up on a farm, for kids or even young adults who are interested in farming or ranching or animal husbandry, but gosh, I don't have a 2-acre plot to plow in or a place to put in a pasture, but this might be an opportunity. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. That's pretty cool.
Plots are half-acre plots.
Okay, I misspoke. Half-acre plots.
Well,
thank you.
But someone can lease more than that. Fact is, we have some experimentation going on where they're doing that. And it's just as an example, we'll take a panoramic later, but most of this east side, Jeff Schmink from the Palmer Soil and Water Conservation, he's been doing experimentation testing of different varieties of potatoes.
Okay.
Last year they were doing to see in terms of attracting the honeybees, which ones would attract bees
Oh,
more.
fun. Okay.
But then
All right.
also the Material Resource Center, they're doing experimentation for ground crops, in, to make it less need for plowing and disting. This is a old hayfield, so there's a lot of sod out there. So they're doing experimentation in terms of how to deal with that, how you can convert old sod to, productive farming.
Sure.
In today's agricultural. He just started a experimentation, and again, this is all to support agriculture today. They were contacted by a California company who, because of temperatures and pests and those type of things for mustard seed, they have been using Jeff now this year, where they have planted different mustard varieties and species to see what really grows, and they see that as a potential for a commercial crop for farmers here.
Okay.
And that's what this is for. And then we have a family who wanted to get started in growing rhodiola, which is a new crop.
Yeah, it's the hot business right
now. There's a lot of folks very interested in, but they didn't have land. But there's a 5-year deal, but it's been a great learning experience for them in terms of what's necessary to do. So that's the type of diversity that we do to support agricultural now.
That's wonderful.
Plus the youth and the
Right.
development. But this whole area back here is designated specifically for youth. The barn here, which is a original colony barn that H5 Construction donated to us because they're so community-minded, helped move it here. It was up off Scott Road. That's going to be able to use for club meetings, for 4-H, the tribal youth, FFA, as well as like the Grange and the Master Gardeners and different community groups are going to be able to use that to meet. But then we can also bring animals into it,
Yeah.
so they can demonstrate, give training on those kind of things, year round, those type of things. So it's going to be a multi-purpose in a historical barn, but again, geared to help promote agriculture
I'm so
both
excited
today
about it.
and tomorrow.
Well, I think we should show folks around a little bit.
We'll follow you.
Maybe we'll start with the house. Sarah, we still good on video? Everything running smooth? Love it. All right. So yeah, if you guys will come with us, we're going to go take a look at the farmhouse first, and then we'll walk you around some of the rest of the grounds here.
This house was built in 1935, Rebarchek, and we have some family members, particularly granddaughter who has been part of our team.
Okay.
And we've also then be sure that whatever we do with this farmhouse, this was put on the National Registry of Historical Places.
Okay.
And whatever things we've had to do to upgrade and modernize for local codes and stuff, whatever we did.
All right, everybody. Sorry for the technical difficulties. We are back with the Rebarchek farm tour, and we are going to be taking a step inside the original farmhouse now. So yeah, let's go explore.
Come on in. This is the entryway that Ray had added on, and it has been, this is how the ceiling looked. These are the original logs.
Okay.
And again, this is the original door, and then when you come into the house, this is a typical, these are the original floors.
Wow. Go ahead and you can let you jump in front of us.
And then you can just take a panoramic, I think is probably that's the original refrigerator. Those are original cabinets up on the other wall.
That's so great. Yeah, Sarah, why don't you walk in there and then shoot back towards us, and you can tell us a little more about this, Lamar.
And I think, you know, the plan with the fair is that someday they'll have people dress up in period costumes and actually give tours just like they were living here.
Okay.
And so
Super
I think
cool.
You'll be right.
The vision down the road.
Rebarchek.
So Lamar, tell me a little bit about the dining room here and living room area.
Well, this is all through Sherry Hemming from the, she is chairperson of the historical committee for our Rebarchek Agricultural Park, which is also very much involved with the Palmer Historical Society. So these are just things that they have brought to demonstrate and show what a typical farmhouse during the colony area. And actually we go from, Ray Rebarchek operated this as a dairy farm up through the mid-1950s. So basically we're trying to represent from the colony era until about the 1955 time frame. Okay. That's the time frame that the National Historical Register was based on. So this is your representative. We did, reserve the foundation, had to replace logs and those type of things. But this is the original floor, the original molding that was there. So everything we could keep, and those things we had to rebuild, like the ceiling and walls. This is the grid they had, and this is what it looked like. And,
it's beautiful, and I love these floors. That these are the original floors. That's super, super cool. And then you got some kind of period pieces here, and a few of these are their original pieces, like the refrigerator, right?
Refrigerator is, and the cabinets up on the wall.
Oh yeah, let me shut this door so that they can see that. Yeah, this place. Can you see that, Sarah? That's pretty cool.
And
into the kitchen.
These are the colony paint schemes. There weren't too many varieties available through the co-op.
Okay.
So, one of the stories that is really neat about Ray Rebarchek, the colonists were not supposed to build the homes themselves. That's where the workers came up from the lower 48 and they did it. But Ray didn't want them doing it. Well, he dug a basement. You can't have a basement according to the co-op. So before they could build the house, he had to fill in the basement, which he did. But he did it very loosely. So when they were done with the house, out came the dirt.
Oh, really?
And there was a basement. And it was still dirt. Most of it was still dirt when we took over the project. And of course, we've had to correct that. Now it's all cement floor and those type of things.
Sure.
Again, we've done what we needed to do to preserve it as much as possible in its historical state, but also for long-term sustainability, that it's going to be here for a while. And as Kevin was mentioning earlier, we see this as becoming a destination for tourists, not only for the farmhouse, but you have the gathering place at the state fair, and then you have the Palmer House Museum and the Palmer Visitor Center. So we see it all melding, and we're all supporting each other and various aspects with the history here.
Yeah, one thing I might mention too, Lamar, we haven't touched on, is the Antique Tractor Club's been involved with the property too. They've come down and used their antique tractors to do the farming, so that's been a neat addition too, and a neat opportunity for them to get their old implements out there. And
fact is, the field out there on the west is their oats on planting day, and we plan to have community-wide events for planting day each spring. We had our first one this year, and that's when the Antique Power Club came out with their equipment. A lot of it, they use a planter that is 100 years old, wooden, and so they did their disking and all those, and then planted. That's the crop we'll see. But then we also had where we invited parents to bring their kids, and they were able, and there's potatoes out there that were planted on planting day, that then we will have harvest days. Again, it's late September, and you can watch the fair's website because we'll be advertising it, where the farmhouse will be open for tours, the whole park will be open for tours, but they will be out here to cut their crop. The kids can come back, dig their potatoes, take their potatoes home.
Oh, cool.
And so those are going to be
cool.
annual events that we open up
That's a great idea.
to the public.
Is there anything in this living room that we should talk about before we head outside to poke around? It's pretty cool.
I'll tell you
in
what,
here.
Sherry would be expert
Yeah, she would. She
on
knows
that. And
get out of the way so you guys
but
can see.
you know, there's historical pictures of the you know, farmers and colonists. These aren't all of Rebarchek, but so.
Yeah, pretty typical of a house of the time, I imagine.
Yeah, and people who have an interest in the history and want to join Sherry as part of the historical group here. There's Richard Estelle, there's other folks. You know, we want to start doing pathways and interpretive signs. Like I said, we're now submitting the grants for restoring and preserving the well house and the sauna and the smokehouse, so
Okay.
that we continue to preserve
Yeah.
and continue the legacy of Ray Rebarchek and his family.
Right. And
his
by
story.
extension, all the colonists,
You
right?
bet.
It's representative of kind of all of how Palmer started out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you know, not just that. We also have a section, and we'll see it is the regenerative Renaissance
Oh, yeah. Save that. Tell us about it
Agriculture.
when we get out there, because I'm excited to show you guys that. That's pretty
and
cool.
a food court. And so those
Yeah.
are past agricultural practices that you know, there's a lot to demonstrate and to show people there.
There's so much to show you guys. All
We
right, let's go
cover
outside.
the whole spectrum of agriculture.
Yeah, I'll get that later. That's all right. So, Lamar, what's us on the left here? This little
Okay,
outbuilding.
this is the
You can leave that there,
original
that's fine.
well house that Mr. Rebarchek turned into a sauna.
Okay,
And now we just kind of use it for storage.
sure. That's
Now,
pretty cool.
but,
Having a sauna back then.
Yeah. We're not going to restore it
Okay.
into a sauna.
Okay. No public
We spend too
sauna.
much time in there, I guess, probably, right? And back in the tree, you can't see it from here, is an original smokehouse.
Okay.
And again, we just want to preserve that.
Well,
It's
yeah.
kind of interesting. If you go off to the side here, the fact is we had the granddaughter who was out visiting this week, and she was talking about this is her swing set.
Oh, wow. Sure enough, there it is around the corner here.
Yeah, so she was reminiscing about the swing set, that type of thing. So
Oh, that's
again,
cool.
we want this to be a historical story from that
Yeah.
period.
Well, would you like to take a look at next? The barn, maybe?
Okay.
That's pretty front and center for everybody.
You bet.
And a big project. One of the major parts of this project.
The original intent when we were provided the barn by H5, construction, and again, those brothers are very community-minded.
Yeah.
They were more than willing and very helpful in helping cover the cost. The cost for all this has been primarily, almost exclusively, by grants.
Oh, good. Okay.
The Rasmussen Foundation, there's a Martha Mitchell, Murdoch Foundation, the Gateway Community Council, the Grange, the Matthew Health Foundation, have all helped contribute to keep building this, as well as the State Fair, and the board is obviously very, very supportive
Sure.
of this project.
Sure.
We originally hoped and thought that the logs, the top half of that barn is the top half of the Shadeen barn,
Okay.
number 98.
Okay.
It was on plot number 98
All right.
up off Stott
Let's
Road.
step right up over here.
But when we took down the log from the original barn because we were going to use it to be able to have youth in and
Okay.
groups in. You know, we had to be sure it's structurally safe, and so those logs, they determined, the engineer looked at it and said, no, we need to replace the logs.
Gotcha.
So that's why the logs are. But, you know, that's where the windows were along the side, and it's going to be a multi-purpose. As I said, where club meetings can be, particularly with no charge for agricultural related clubs or organizations,
Wow.
but we hope to make it. There may be some limited occupancy, restrictions, those type of things, but we do want to make it available for the community to be able to use. But we're maintaining, because off to the side here is where we will have some animal pens, not to house the animals permanently, but where they can do outside demonstrations, training, education, sharing or hoofs or whatever they're doing, with the animals. But when the weather's bad or during the winter, that's why that side door is there, because there's going to be a ramp there where they can take the animal inside, and we've got a drain so we can wash the floor when things happen. So it's truly multi-purpose where we can use it for animals to help promote the interest, particularly of youth and kids, because that's where you really pique their interest in terms of agriculture.
Sure.
With the animals, and that's where 4-H and FFA, we're going to support those clubs and help those clubs grow, because now we have facilities here.
Right.
Kevin.
Yeah, and then in addition to that, you can see there's a little construction going off this east side too, which will be a classroom office type setting.
Yes.
So a real neat space for FFA advisors, 4-H leaders, or anybody that wants to use it. Maybe have workshops there,
Right.
along with the barn itself. So.
And public bathrooms there that'll be accessible. What you see, the red little barn there is a milking barn for goats, and then on the other side of that, I don't know if you want to walk that way, but we've got some animal pens that goats have been in. We're kind of in a transition right now, but again, the infrastructure is here so that as we rebuild and move forward in terms of how best to support youth programs and the youth groups, then we have the facilities here where they can do animals. Same thing, you can't see it from here.
Well, we can walk over there. Let's start
Okay.
heading that way. Yeah. And as we walk, I want to tell you folks that one of the future ideas for this area, even if you aren't involved with FFA, if you don't have kids who are into farming, if you're not directly into farming, the hope is to have this be also an event space for the community, that when it's finished, it'll be available to use for concerts, maybe even weddings. We'll have the barn here, we'll have restrooms, we'll have a huge open field right over here, and gorgeous backdrop. So something that just about anybody could enjoy, right? Am I accurate in that?
Yes. If you take a panoramic here, you'll see what we call this event lawn. This is designed for groups to be able to use, put tents up or canopies up, and those kind of things. Have the mountains in the back view, split rail fence. The lawn looked better, but we had some extensive winter chill this past year. But this will all turn back into a very open. All this area will be an open event area, and we are planning there where there will be auxiliary power so that you can put a portable stage in front of the barn for concerts, and then again, it's just open for the community.
Yeah,
to do
pretty
that.
cool. All right, yeah, let's peek around here. We still got the greenhouse to look at. We got the chicken coop.
Is when she comes around. And as you can tell, we're still under construction. We're still doing things here, so this doesn't look as neat as well it will, but this is an original chicken coop from the colony. It wasn't on this farm. At some point in the past, it was moved on
Okay.
the farm. But again, that's being used. We had chickens housed in it until just not long ago, and again, we're kind of in a transition. But there will be chickens, and it's designed so that then you can have, whether it is fowl, turkeys, or ducks. Again, whatever the clubs and the youth groups need infrastructure-wise to support their programs and the youth interest. That's what we're doing out here.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah, let's get a little closer over here.
The panoramic off toward the mountain, that is all the agricultural area that is available that we're leasing. And when we say leasing, basically depending on the type of group or whatever, it may range from $100 a year or to $500 a year. But every plot has a water spigot so that the infrastructure
That's a big deal. Yeah.
is there. The area off to the left, that's where the Palmer Soil Water Conservation Material Resource Center, that's where they're using it until we actually start to lease the land on the west side. That's the playground for the Antique Power Club.
How many half-acre plots do you have over there?
There are, I think it's about 14.
So ultimately, up to 14 plots could be available for lease.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. That's
Yep.
really great.
And they all have the water. There's no electricity down there, but they don't.
Sure.
They
Sure.
don't need it.
Yeah.
And then we also have divisions. The master gardeners are going to have a slot here. The Grange has a there because they have their education programs for grafting and youth, and they've got some ideas for schools.
Okay.
And grade school kids, where basically they come, they learn about planting a tree, grafting a tree, they follow it as they go through their grade school, and at some point, then they're able to take a tree home.
Oh, okay. Right
So
on.
again,
That's great.
everything out here is all about promoting
I'm
and
sensing a theme.
supporting their programs.
All right. So it looks like Kevin's getting the greenhouse opened up for us here.
Yes.
He was telling me this morning that he was the one that actually built it with the help of some of the kids. I didn't realize that.
That and Matt Dessner,
Okay.
Chelsea Dessner,
Okay.
who have been very instrumental in a lot of the youth development,
Okay.
the programs. And then we got grants from the Gateway Community Council, the Grange,
Okay.
so that we can use this. One of the problems and what was kind of the instigator of this is that FFA clubs used to be able to use the greenhouses over at the experimental farm extension. Well, the use of those greenhouses went away.
Sure.
And so they could not do their projects, and they've not been able to do their projects for the last couple of years. We'd hope to have this done in time for them to use it beginning in February this year. Well, then we had this little windstorm that came
Yes.
in January.
Little windstorm.
Well, it blew in the doors, it blew the cover off. So they weren't able to do their starts here, but the Palmer FFA, the program, Cody Boo, they had enough room where they could do enough starts.
Okay.
But then when they needed more room, the greenhouse was ready.
Perfect.
And then they were able to do that. So then you had students who were able to do their special projects. But we're ready to go now from the very start for youth groups.
Let's go take a look at it while we're talking about it. Oh, Kevin is all excited to show us all the circulations in there. Now we won't be able to hear anything. I can hear those fans going from here.
We have designed it and built it with the expertise of Kevin and the extension service
I think you might need to turn those fans off so we
to
can
make
hear
it so that it can really be used by different groups so that we can, kind of segregate it so that you've got a group here, these are their plants, you've got a group here, these plants. And so it can be multiple used. And if it's not used fully by youth, well, then we'll open it up to,
Okay.
But the youth always have first priority as they continue to grow.
Yeah,
then they
sure.
And the long-term vision, if there is sufficient community need and demand, we've got space where we can add
Okay.
more
Lovely.
greenhouses. Space.
Well, let's show them the inside of it here.
Again, it's still under construction. We're still laying down gravel,
Okay.
those type of things. So it doesn't look done yet, but
Yeah, but look at this infrastructure. Like, this is a nice greenhouse.
the tables were built. Kevin, you can tell them how the tables were built.
Yeah, every year we have our annual FFA state convention, and one of our competitive events is Ag Mechanics. So
There you
the
go.
team event this year was to build these tables. So kids had to design, and we gave them some parameters. They had to design and build these tables. So all the tables were constructed by FFA members during our state convention. So worked out,
It's great.
Yep.
built something that was functional and will be used for the future. So
Yeah, you got track lighting going on up here, and yeah, the whole bit.
yeah, great setup for a greenhouse. It's going to be a neat facility. It went through some rough times. We had it all covered with plastic, and then we had that big storm, and
That's what he was just telling us. Yeah.
took the plastic off. But
We
so
rebuilt
had-
the doors to make them much sturdier
right.
than what the original doors were, so it can withstand that wind.
Right.
And on the right side here, we've already designated, again talking with Ann for 4-H,
Uh-huh.
this whole side here is designated for 4-H raised bed gardening
Oh, wow.
that
Okay.
they'll be doing next spring. Of course, then we've got the other side, and we got plenty more there. So they're not taking all the space, but Ann and talking with a 4-H clubs, they wanted their designated area for raised beds, and so that's it.
Wow.
And I don't know if you mentioned the Pioneer Grange. I was traveling to the greenhouse, but did you
Yes,
mention them? The Grange has that
Yep.
plot there, so they're doing
Yeah.
some work with shrubs and trees.
then- Why don't you tell us and show us the goat pen over here, and then the composting and such beyond there.
Well, these were the goat pens, and there's plans then that when they need to be expanded for sheep or some other animals, we can go this way. And in this whole area here, once this gets planted with grass, this is all because of construction and stuff that it just hasn't regrown yet, then this will be an area where animals can be walked.
Okay.
Animals can be exercised, those type of things, or again, demonstration. So we just have a number of areas that people are going to be able to bring in animals for a demonstration. The livestock committee with maybe some of their day events and those type of things. And then they have great picnic areas and
Right.
open lawn areas and stuff like that.
All right.
That's the part that's still under construction, obviously.
Sure. So back here, you've got some pretty experimental projects going on. This is kind of cool. Tell us about that.
Well, this is the Regenerative Renaissance Agricultural Team, as they
It's a
call
mouthful.
themselves. Very organic related,
Okay.
and they've got trails that they're putting back in there. MEA, we've told them we will take all the chips that they have from when they're doing their line clearing and all those type of things, but what they're going to demonstrate is, and I can't explain it very well, Josh Smith and Sharon Hine and different people in the group, they know what they're doing there. They've got mounds there, and they're going to show and demonstrate, experiment
Right. Here,
with
let's come over
how,
here.
without using chemicals and pesticides, you can get rid of weeds And so what they're doing is they're putting down cardboard, and then they layer it, and then they let it decompose
Okay.
and over time. And so then, again, they're planting different type of trees and plants so that they can help educate and train in terms of grafting and just all those type of practices, and using both native type plants, but as you can see, using natural things where they've got cabbages planted in some of the stumps and those
Yeah.
type of things, but basically how from a historical agricultural perspective, there's a wide variety of things that can be used to grow food in your own backyard, your own small property. So this is to demonstrate and help educate people on how that can be done.
That's wonderful. Well, we've covered a lot of ground, and you guys have seen a lot of stuff. Is there anything before we sign off today that we missed, or that any closing thoughts? Or
just say,
ways that people can get involved?
I just say the opportunity. There's
Okay.
a lot of opportunity. That probably sums it up. There's a lot of opportunity for youth. There's a lot of opportunity for adults, and for community use. It's going to be a wonderful facility, and it's only going to get better.
That's wonderful. Is there anything that people can do right now? Any calls to action for getting involved, either if they've got kids that they want to get plugged in, or if they want to help with the restoration or the construction, or if they are interested in leasing plots? Are we like, how far out are we on some of those things for people to start getting involved, or is there stuff they can do now?
They can contact me. They can contact the Alaska State Fair. You can go to the website for the Alaska State Fair. There's a tab there for the Rebarchek Agricultural Park.
Oh, okay.
That's still under development, but it's got some contact information.
Perfect.
And then we can put you in touch with the right person or group, depending on what your specific interest is.
Right. Perfect. Okay.
And if you've got kids that are interested in some animals or agricultural, steer them to the
Yeah.
FFA, 4-H, Connect Tribal. They're doing some experimentation out here now.
Oh, cool.
In the agricultural plots, and so we've already been under discussion with them, starting discussions in terms of involving them using these facilities for their youth programs as well. So
Okay. Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for another Thursday Facebook Live. I was pretty excited to show you this particular project. It's a pretty unique one, pretty special. I think it's going to have a large impact. Hope you guys continue to try to learn more about it and follow along on its progress. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again next week. Have a good one.
Thank you.